Thanks for watching. All right. I got mis- mixed up here. Okay. And welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Jonetta, and I am pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter. That's uofva.org for all the details. Now, our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl Fair. And now, here's Reverend Cheryl.
Thanks so much, Johnetta, and welcome, everyone who is with me in the Zoom room right now, and all of you who are watching on YouTube or picking us a recording up on social media. Whether you're watching live or watching later, we are so happy to have your presence, your energy as a part of this ministry we call Unity of Fredericksburg. Our broadcast date today is June the 14th, 2026. So we are looking ahead to later in the week is the holiday known as Juneteenth, also known as Emancipation Day. Juneteenth honors the end of slavery in the United States, and it marks the day when the news of the Emancipation Proclamation finally reached the last enslaved colony. And it was 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation when the last colony of enslaved peoples finally heard that they were free. And Juneteenth is not only a historical milestone, it is a spiritual marker. It reminds us that freedom is both a human right and a divine truth. So Juneteenth calls us to confront systems, internal and external, that hold people in bondage. It invites us to celebrate how far we've come and recommit ourselves to continuing the work of working for freedom. Here's a quote from Desmond Tutu. My humanity is bound up in yours, for we can only be human together. And here's a quote from Malcolm X. You can't separate peace from freedom because no one can be at peace unless they have freedom. So on Friday this week, on the 19th, I encourage you to do something special to honor the lessons of Juneteenth. And today we are continuing with the second of 3 talks based on the book The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav. This book was published in 1989, and through the synchronicity of the universe, Gary Zukav's writing came to the attention of Oprah Winfrey, and she began having Gary Zukav on her television show. And it really kind of exploded into consciousness, the things that Gary Zukav has to share. Now, we had at Unity of Fredericksburg, we hold an annual discernment process to say, what do we want to talk about this year? And this book came up as a request of like, oh, what about this? And so that's what we're doing this month, is looking at the seed of the soul. Now, there's a lot in that book. I do encourage you to read it on your own, follow along as you like. There will not be enough time for me to touch on each one of the things that he talks about. I will kind of choose highlights and do my best to kind of relate them to Unity teachings, and we'll see how we go. So today, for those of you who have a book, we're focusing on chapters 4, 5, and 6. And the titles of those chapters are Heart, Intuition, and Light. Now, just a brief review of what we talked about last week. At the beginning of his book, Gary Zukav presents a model of evolution. Not the physical evolution that we are aware of when we go to school, where we look at the evolution of species. He's talking about humanity evolving from beings based on our five senses to multi-sensory beings. And this process of evolution is the process by which we truly become aware of our wholeness, our divinity, our soul. And we can choose to intentionally engage with this process of evolution through our spiritual practice. Or, as the Zen proverb says, you can either evolve or be dragged. Your choice. Now, the being dragged part comes from our intellect's stubborn attachment to interpreting the world through our five senses, through the impressions of our brain. And our brains are very attached to saying, this is reality, this is what's important. Let's hear from Gary Zukav about this process here and begin with talking about the heart. So, the logics and understanding of the five, and by the way, I'm on page 43 for those of you following with your book. I had a request, include page numbers, so there you go. The logics and understanding of the five sensory personality originate in the mind. They are products of the intellect. The higher order of logic and understanding that is capable of meaningfully reflecting the soul comes from the heart. The creation of this higher order of logic and understanding, therefore, requires close attention to feelings. And at the bottom of page 44, without an awareness of our emotions, we cannot distinguish between that part of us, which is personality, and that which is soul. So when we try to do that with our intellect, that doesn't work, because our intellect is not the level of awareness that we're looking to tap into. Tapping into our emotions is not easy for everyone. Some of us have a natural inclination toward that, and some of us definitely don't. And a lot of this comes from our history. The history of Western philosophy, rationalism, modern psychology contains a strong thread of bias, presenting the intellect as superior to human emotions. And many of our human systems reflect this core belief that things need to be rational and logical, and that emotions are not something to be trusted. So we've all learned this. And even the writings of Unity founder Charles Fillmore reflect this kind of mindset. Charles Fillmore presented emotions as real forces of consciousness that must be disciplined, spiritualized, and directed by the I am, rather than allowed to run the personality. So, like, emotions were something to be managed by our divine nature. Now, on the other hand, Unity founder Myrtle Fillmore did not shame or suppress emotion. She treated feelings as signals calling us back to truth when we get off track, and as channels through which divine love can flow. So in the early 1900s, when the Fillmores were writing and forming the ministry that would become Unity, most metaphysical and Christian writers emphasized self-control, willpower, and mastery, whereas Myrtle emphasized kindness, reassurance, and emotional tenderness. So, because of this history of thought, this evolutionary shift that Gary Zukav describes toward honoring the heart can feel irrational, uncomfortable, unsafe to some people. So, for those who are kind of, on that edge where like, I'm not sure I trust this, the Unity teachings of Myrtle Fillmore would be your best guide to be in line with what Gary Zukav is talking about. If we choose to lean into this evolution from 5 sensory to multi-sensory humanity, what can we do to open our senses beyond our 5 senses, the senses of our body and our intellect? The first would be to welcome your emotions. Be present with your feelings and don't be scolding yourself when you're feeling emotional. So, in the mode of Myrtle Fillmore, acknowledging emotions are messengers. She referred at one point like emotions are like children tugging at your sleeve, looking to get your attention, saying, pay attention. This is important. This moment is important. Something is up here. Something in you needs light. There's some thought going on that needs to be lifted out of the concerns of the outer world into spirit. So let's take a breath right now and just be with that for a moment, opening up the heart, being in gratitude for the inspired guidance of our emotions that kind of let us know when we're in a space that something is not in alignment with spirit, with truth, what it's trying to tell us, and how we can work with it. And that realm of the heart is where we can really step into this spiritual evolution that Gary Zukav talks about. Now, the next topic we have for this morning is from the Seed of the Soul, a chapter called Intuition. So let's look and see what Gary Zukav has to say about intuition. The central perception of the multisensory human is that he or she is not alone. Not alone. The multisensory human does not need to rely solely upon his or her own perceptions and interpretations for guidance, because he or she is in conscious communication beyond perception. So here's a little bit more, and this is on page 65. The last quote was page 61. Page 65, the 5 sensory personality. To the 5 sensory personality, intuitive insights or hunches occur unpredictably and cannot be counted upon. To the multisensory personality, intuitive insights are registrations within its consciousness of a loving guidance that is continually assisting and supporting its growth. Therefore, the multisensory personality strives to increase its awareness of this guidance. So, how does that feel to you? How does that feel to you to open up to a notion of not being alone? We all spend in our human lives, our whole experience really is within our own consciousness. We can observe things outside of ourselves, engage in relationship, but we don't really know anything beyond what our own experience is. And here is Gary Zukav saying the foundation of intuition is realizing we're not alone. We can be in touch with energies that are well beyond our experience. And how do you feel about that? Do you feel surrounded and supported by helpful energy? Now, here at Unity of Fredericksburg, we were treated to an in-person workshop back in the fall of 2025 about developing our intuition. And so some of you were able to participate in that. Here are tips that Gary Zukav shares about encouraging your intuition. The first step, to echo back to our first topic, becoming aware of what you are feeling. Being present with your emotions, honoring the messages that your emotions carry, and processing what it is that they're pointing to. So we all know as human beings that sometimes stuff comes up, we're feeling about it, and our approach is to avoid it, stuff it down, delay it, deny it, all of these things that Gary Zukav is saying, no, 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 pay attention. Pay attention to what the emotions are showing you, what is out of alignment with truth, and do the work of bringing things back into alignment. Gary Zukav calls this process emotional cleansing. So he wants us to be doing our emotional housework and cleaning house on a regular basis. The second step that he talks about for tuning into your intuition is he mentions, and he just makes the briefest mention of this and then moves on. For some of you, this is a big one that you'll go, oh, we could talk about this for days. He says having a cleansing nutritional program. Now, we all live inside these human bodies, and these bodies need to be supported with healthy nutrition. He just kind of drops it there and then moves on. But as we know, this can be an ongoing issue for a lot of us if we're drawn to certain kinds of foods and that's not what the body wants. This can be a lifetime practice of working on cleansing nutrition. The third step that he brings up is to honor the guidance you receive. So a lot of us will talk about that as like a gut instinct. Like, you ever had a sense that like your gut is telling you you should turn right, but your plan was to go to the left? And, haven't we all had those moments? Could be in that scenario where you're driving from one place to another and you kind of get a sense like, maybe I should go this way today. But you pressure on through, you're like, no, I was gonna, I'm gonna do my errands in this order, and you push on through and you end up in a traffic jam, right? Whatever the example is, I think we all have been in those moments where we second guess our instinct, our gut instinct. We don't pay attention to that little intuitive hit that says, not right now, or this is not for you. And then we regret it later, right? So I should have listened to my gut. So what Gary Zukav is saying is honor the guidance that you receive, no matter how it shows up. And there are lots of different ways that it can show up. And fourth, and most importantly, encourage your intuition by approaching your life with a sense of faith and trust. Faith and trust. Now, this, my friends, is not a new teaching, is it? If we look back to the teachings of Jesus in Matthew 7:7, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. There's Jesus saying, live your life in faith and trust. What you have to do is ask. All you have to do is ask. There's lots of ways of asking. And here's a little bit from Gary Zukav about this. And this is on pages 66 to 67. Every time you ask for guidance, you receive it. Every time you ask yourself, what is my motivation? You ask the universe, help me to see, and help comes. You may not always be capable of hearing the answers to your questions when you ask them, and the answers may not always come in ways that you expect, but they always come. Sometimes an answer occurs in the form of a feeling, a yes feeling or a no feeling, sometimes in the form of a memory or a thought that at the time seems random, sometimes in a dream, sometimes in the form of a realization that is prompted by an experience that will occur the next day. No question is unheard, and no question goes unanswered. Ask and you shall receive is the rule, but you must learn how to ask and how to receive. Yes, indeed. So now, according to Gary Zukav, we can encourage our intuition by knowing that we're not alone, despite the evidence of our human senses, knowing ourselves to be loved and supported, asking for enlightenment with intention and with humility, because our brain is not. That's not geared toward humility. Our brain is geared towards, I know what I'm doing. This is the way of the world. We have to be asking with humility and trusting that a response from the energy that is beyond our perception is assured. Knock and the door will be opened. So take a breath, my friends. As we just pause to just process here for a minute in gratitude for the inspired guidance of our intuition. Now, the next path of exploration here in the Seed of the Soul is the topic of light. And let me read to you a little bit from page 75. It is not possible to understand your soul or your higher self or your intuition without coming to terms with the existence of non-physical reality. So we're living lives in these human bodies, we're relating to physical reality. We can't really engage with this process of spiritual evolution until we acknowledge the existence of non-physical reality. And the access to this level of understanding that's offered by our author is through the concept of light. Now, of course, when we think of light, we first think of the experience that we have through our physical sense of sight, right? And light, as it's studied by scientists, light that can be turned off with a switch or dimmed as the sun goes down. But we're talking about a different kind of light. And there are many stories out there of folks who have had near-death experiences, and there frequently is a mention of light. And I myself have had a near-death experience. It occurred in 2015 following a severe auto accident. And it wasn't at the time of the accident. It was about 5 or 6 weeks later when my body was, it had developed sepsis and I was very close to death. And I lifted out of the body and was able to perceive things from beyond what we call the veil, kind of that boundary of human experience to beyond. And one of the primary experiences that I had there was around light, because what I was experiencing was the brightest, fullest expression of light beyond what I can really describe, and the presence of every single imaginable color in the rainbow at the same moment, and the light so bright and in the cells of the body and in every single thing, and yet there's no need to wear shades because it is expressing as me, through me, all around and in everything. And that's the kind of light that we are talking about. That's what we're describing. This light exists totally in the non-physical aspects of reality. It's the light that shines in the life energy of every cell of the body and through every level of consciousness. And as Gary Zukav writes at the top of page 78, you are a system of light, as are all beings. The frequency of your light depends on your consciousness. And that's why in Unity, we are always working on improving the quality of our consciousness so we can learn more deeply how to express the light of the soul through our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and attitudes. And we know that we set intentions in prayer in Unity to shine the light into different circumstances based on our divine nature. So Gary Zukav offers us teachings to shine the light by releasing judgment. He does in these chapters that we're talking about dive in again around judgment and around the concept of evil and bring it back to it's our responsibility to address this at the level of our consciousness. So when we're labeling things in the world as bad or evil, that we need to address that at the point of our consciousness. He also encourages to shine the light by leaning into reverence for all life forms, embracing the wisdom of our emotions, realizing we are never alone, and tapping into the guidance and support of our intuition, and by setting our intentions to shine the light of spirit in all of our human experiences. So that is a lot. Let us move into our time of meditation and get quiet around all of this. Allow some space, and we'll have some affirmations to help us process and settle into all of this. Take a couple of deep breaths. I'm going to read one more quote from the book here, if I can find it. No, actually, I am not. I apologize. Take a breath, my friends. Let's just allow the energy of these teachings to just gently soak into all the layers of our human life. And listen to a few affirmations here to prepare our time in the stillness today. I see beyond appearances and recognize the soul's journey in all beings. I release judgment and see myself and others through the compassionate eyes of the soul. I welcome the lessons of the soul, trusting that every experience serves my evolution. And let us move into a time in the stillness, right here, right now. And as we begin to bring our attention back to the here and now, with the body in the seat, feeling the breath moving in and out of the body, we'll bring us back with a few more affirmations for reflection. I let my heart lead with clarity, kindness, and authentic power. I honor the subtle signals of my soul and walk in conscious choice. I am a radiant being of light, expanding in awareness and compassion. And here's one more affirmation, my friends, that I will repeat, and I invite you to repeat it with me at home. Here it is. I shine the light of the soul, and I am grateful. Say it with me. I shine the light of the soul, and I am grateful. Let's do it one more time. I shine the light of the soul, and I am grateful. So I am. So thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to hand it back now to our friend Johnetta. Johnetta, you're muted. There you go.
Okay, there we go. And once again, thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.